You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with a special guest that has a lot to say. Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Amanda, and right now I'm currently working as a psychic medium with a paranormal investigation group, and that's basically what I do for the time being.
Now, is this what you do professionally?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so
It's a paid gig for now.
what types of paranormal stuff do you kind of look at?
We do absolutely anything paranormal. We're very open. The investigations, of course, are usually like hauntings and things like that. And we're still growing, so we're kind of word of mouth at this point. But we've done several investigations. And what we do is we go in and we interview the individual and say, hey, tell us what's going on. And that's usually a recorded podcast. And then we come back within a few days to do a full investigation. And we've got all of the equipment that you would see like on Ghost Hunters or any kind of show like that. And my job is to, before we even go and meet with the person, I start meditating and trying to contact that person's loved ones and see what's going on and from like a medium perspective. And then when we arrive, I usually do a quick walkthrough of the house or whatever the location is and just see what kind of impressions I get.
How hard is it to explain to someone about the paranormal? Like, it's not easy for anybody to try and understand that because a lot of people think paranormal, They think X-Files, and it's like, oh, man.
Yeah, it's really hard. And a lot of people, if they've never had an experience, they tend to think we're just like fake. And so, yeah, it is really hard to say, well, yeah, I contacted this person's, this last investigation I did. I was in contact with this lady's mother, and the mother gave me information and told me some specifics about the situation and about her daughter. And, my mother then later says, well, what did you experience? And I tell her, and she's just like, it's either demons or it didn't happen. And so we get a lot of that.
When anybody talks up something about the paranormal, I always considered it like a radio frequency. Like some people are tuned into a different frequency.
That's a perfect way to kind of to put it, because like I believe that really literally anyone can tap into the unseen, and it's just that some people are naturally very sensitive to it. For me, I had some like traumatic things happen that kind of put me in a really vulnerable emotional state, and that's when I started seeing ghosts and realizing, oh my God, I can talk to the dead.
I mean, you're talking to someone that is actually in a little bit of belief of this. At first, I was a bit skeptic, but I've podcasted with paranormal people, and I've actually had paranormal things and types of psychic ability stuff that you can't really explain. I wouldn't even call it psychic abilities, but in my own life, apparently, from what my mom has told me. There's this one time, like a really standout moment when I was a kid, there's a little girl that was missing around the time when I was 14 years old. So it's been about 7-8 years. And she was all over the news. Nobody could find her. At this point, they were looking for a body. And my mom told my dad, you need to call it in right now and say it's in this spot. And I know for a fact my mom did not murder this girl. And next thing I know, they find the body. They called it in anonymously. And my dad was a true believer in the psychic ability and being able to speak to the dead just because of that. Because my mom had a dream and saw this little girl and said the girl came up to her and said, please help my parents find my body. and that just gave her a location, and my mom just pointed it off. I didn't understand it when I was a kid. I was like, that's just a
Sure.
coincidence.
Yeah.
Until recently, I think it was like almost last year, I had a really, really strong dream, and I've always been known to get deja vu. And I had a really, really strong dream, and there was a person, and I saw him sitting by a canal, like a little channel, like a kind of like a gutter in a way, but with a lot more water. And
Uh-huh.
I was like, whoa, and it impacted me so much. And I walked downstairs. I was like, it just had the craziest dream. And my mom's like, what was it about? I started telling her, and she goes, can you do me a favor? Pulls out a photo on her phone and says, was this the guy? And I said, yeah, that's the guy that was laying by the river or the little canal thing. And she goes, can you
Uh-huh.
tell me exactly where you saw that? And I just described to her the area. And next thing I know, not even like a day later, they found him.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Was he dead?
Yeah, exactly like how my dream was.
Oh my God.
And it was like, I heard that. I
Yeah.
was like, that was just a coincidence. That can't be anything. But have you ever seen the movie Unbreakable
I don't think so,
with
huh?
M. Night Shyamalan? And it's with Bruce Willis, where he has feelings about people. It just was kind of a tangent or a kind of a sequel to the new movie that came out, Glass.
No, I haven't seen it.
Well, this guy gets like, he is in a train accident and survives, like barely. He was the only survivor, and he wasn't even hurt. And he would walk past people and get like feelings about them. Like he would sense
Uh-huh.
their moods, sense if they were a good person or a bad person. I started experiencing this now. I mean, I've been experiencing it my whole life. I've been sensing moods. I mean, you can tell when someone's a wet towel, like when they have that bland
Yeah.
kind of, kind of seems like draining energy. Well,
Uh-huh.
I find that even walking around people today, I get drained. I can tell if someone is a good person. I can tell if someone's been through something. I can tell like these types of emotions.
Yeah.
And my mom gave me this book and was like, it's called Being an Empath. And it's
Yeah. I was going to say, have you ever taken the Myers-Briggs test?
I haven't, but I mean, I see. I don't dive into it that much because my mom likes to find full belief in it, and there's a good reason to talk about it. I think you have to be as open minded as possible when it comes to the idea of psychic abilities, and people are very, very closed off to it. If you can
They
believe in
are.
ghosts, you can't be closed off to psychic abilities.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
obviously, there's the ones that get the good credit and the bad credit. Like when it comes to the ones that just do it just for money, they just try and falsify information, act like they're speaking to
Yeah.
the dead. Those are the bad ones. But I'm talking about the people that actually use them to help. Like my grandmom's been known to talk to the dead or something. I've never witnessed it, but my mom's talked about it. And
Well, it tends to run in the family.
yeah, it was weird because my mom's like, it runs in the family, but it skipped a generation. It skipped your brother because your brother
Oh,
doesn't
wow.
have any capability of it. And I'm like, I think we're
Yeah.
all deep down very empathic. I just feel like, this one woman I podcast with, her name is Renee Odell Hurt. She believes in the psychic abilities, and she says that everyone has one, but that lies dormant inside of them. I heard that, and I was like,
I agree with that.
is that true? And then I started thinking about it. There is a connectivity that you get that makes you an empath, makes you have empathy when you start talking and having conversations like I've been having with just hundreds of people all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten to the point now where I feel like a sense of wholeness. I think that's what it is. It's connectivity, not only to the people around you, but being more aware of just flow and energy from conversation.
Yeah. You kind of get a feeling of a connection even to nature and the planet and
The overall,
the
like,
universe.
it feels like a life force a little bit in a way.
Yeah. Well, the guy that I work with, he's 70 years old. He's been an investigator his whole life with the police, with the DEA, and now he works for Homeland Security. And he always says that it shouldn't even be called paranormal because it is not. Like para means beside of what's normal. And he says this is just the world we live in. There is unseen and we just don't accept it because we're used to just believing our own eyes. But you kind of have to tap into those feelings and that knowing you have inside of you as a human being.
I think a lot of people, when they consider something like psychic abilities and they hear that, they immediately think the stereotypical like gypsy, or they think of some like crazy X-Files person trying to hunt down ghosts where you just waste 45 minutes of your life watching it. And I'm like,
Right.
that's not all of it. Okay. If you can believe in a religion, what makes you think that there isn't a type of way or a spiritual plane? Like, come on, honestly.
Yeah.
Right now, as you're talking to me, there's a signal that's invisible to your eyes that is beeping up from your phone up to a satellite and bouncing right back.
Right.
So if you can't see that signal, then what makes you think that maybe some people that can see dead people aren't on another frequency level? I mean, people have been known
Right.
to see like music, literally notes flying in the air, and nobody else can see them.
Yeah.
So you have to think, is it just the brain's way of maybe some people have a deeper connection, or maybe like a type of sixth sense?
I think there's so much that we still don't understand. And like theoretical physicists will even say that, like Sean Carroll, he doesn't believe in the supernatural at all, but he believes in quantum physics and how completely weird it is. And even our phones work because of quantum physics. And there's quantum entanglement where at the smallest particle level, things are influenced by the observer, or, things like that. And I always think that it's just future science. It's something that we don't understand yet, but one day we're going to figure it out. And it's going to have to do with quantum physics, how there's a deep connection that we call psychic, but it's going to be science.
How much? So have you ever seen the show Ghost Whisperer?
Yeah, a little bit.
So my mom actually met the guy that owns that, was creating that show, and he has written books about psychic abilities and being an empath and all these types of things. And my mom kind of saw this in me as a young age, so she wanted to ask him about it. And she walked up to him and said, "I have this son, and I wanted to know." And then immediately the guy cuts her off, and he says, "Is his name Robbie?" And my mom goes, "Yeah, how'd you know?" And they have never met before. They never discussed anything before. And this guy just immediately started telling my mom all this information, how I'm going to be a powerful psychic and all this stuff. And my mom's just sitting there like, she still lives religiously by it. And she's known this about me since I was 4 years old. And she always knew that I had the ability to do something like that. And then when I started bringing up questions like, do you think it's weird? Like, have you ever felt like this? Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like a warning about someone just by being around them? And she starts handing me photos and stuff like, do you get anything from this photo? And I'm like, not really. I don't know. I just, honestly, I have like really crazy dreams when I do sleep. I'm kind of a bit of an insomniac, and I talked to this woman who's on my podcast with psychic abilities, Miss Renee Hurt, and we were going off about like, there are two types of people in this world. There are the ones that are up when people are asleep, and there are ones that are just functioning every day, and there's the people that sleep all day. So I consider them in two different ways. One, they're too smart to talk to others around them, so they feel like they have to be up when everyone else is asleep. And then there's the ones that there's another way of looking at it when it comes to maybe they just can't handle the draining energy of people throughout the day. That's why they're such early birds, because you want to get out there before all these people start coming out with all their problems and all these complaints that just make you feel like you're so tired and fatigued.
Yeah. I've always been a total night out, and a big part of it has been because I don't like being around other people. And it wasn't until later I realized it's not that I don't like other people. I actually like people. It's that I can't handle their energy for too long.
Because everyone displays an image. They display a character. It's never them.
Yeah.
When I get someone into a one-on-one podcast conversation, you can't play a character for an hour and 20 minutes. You can't play a character for more than an hour. You play it for 20 minutes. Next thing you know, the character starts to fall to shambles.
Yeah.
I feel like
Exactly.
if you get more people on a one-on-one conversation, it's where you like, I honestly don't like people, but I love the real people, the ones where I get them into a one-on-one conversation and then I get to see who they truly are, not the one they're just
Yeah.
society today.
Right. Yeah, I totally know what you mean.
I'm trying to,
go ahead.
well, it's difficult because even trying to say that, people just go, well, you're just judging other people. I'm like, I'm not though. We all walk around like someone just took something from us. Like we don't have anything, and it's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true.
And I mean, how did you come to investigating into the paranormal? I know it's kind of been like something that you kind of questioned throughout your life, but like, you know, like was that something that your parents influenced onto you? Was that something that
No, my family, my parents were Baptist missionaries as I was growing up, and like they totally influenced me. You know, you need to receive Jesus Christ and all this stuff, and I totally adopted their religion as my own. And I remember there was even a point where, like, I used to be able to predict who was calling on the phone without ever answering the phone, you know, and the phone would ring and I'd be like, oh, that's going to be grandma. That's going to be a telemarketer or, you know, whatever. And I had read this book that said, even if you think you have psychic abilities, it's from Satan and you should like give it up. So I was like, oh, okay, I have to ignore this part of me. And I got a seminary degree from a Southern Baptist university, and it was in philosophy and theology. And by the time I graduated, I had completely rejected everything that they taught because I was just like, this is all bullshit. They can't justify anything. And eventually, I'll just fast forward through a big part of my life. And I just kind of ignored the feelings that I would have. And like, there would be coincidence. I would call them coincidences, like, oh, okay, well, that's just another coincidence. That's just another coincidence. And they would happen all the time. And I ended up being with this boyfriend a few years ago, and we broke up and we had planned to get married. And so it was really devastating. And at the same time, I kind of went through a really deep depression. I was suicidal. And it was at the same time that Lincoln Park, their front man, committed suicide. And so that pushed me even further into like, oh, well, if he couldn't make it, then I surely can't make it. And excuse me. So I was just, I lived in this little trailer. My parents had moved me close to them because they knew how like desperate and really upset I was. My dad would come over, like just kind of surprise me, like, are you okay today? Are you in a dark place? Are you going to commit suicide?
the problem is trying to explain depression to anybody. We all experience it, but when someone of a young age says depression, you look at them like you don't even know what that word means, and it's not true.
Yeah.
We experience a lot of overwhelming things through our everyday life. No one can blame you or say, hey, you're just messed up. No, you're human. Okay. You get
right.
Most people that are in touch more with their emotions get when they call it being sensitive. No, it's because you get hurt more. When people lie to you, you get hurt. When people mistreat you, you get hurt. What helped me kind of do a little research into I could always kind of detect bullshit through my life. I could always tell if someone was lying to me. I always figured it was because I was always lying all the time when I was a kid. So I know I'm just really good at it.
And then
I stopped when I was like 15. I was like, I don't feel like really lying anymore. It just doesn't feel good. There's no point. I might as well tell the truth because it usually has bigger ramifications when you lie. So I looked up this article by Science of People. And it was called Truth Wizards. It's about people. There's a small fraction of the population that can actually detect truth from somebody. Most of these
I definitely can.
Yeah, most of these people turn out in the career field with being a judge, being a police person, being an really good at that. That's most of the career path choices. Now, research estimates that we basically get lied to as many as 200 times per day. I mean, that means you're literally being told lies the majority of every interaction you ever have. So you think of that and you think about people wearing a mask and people showing you a cover. So the statistic might sound shocking, but it's really honestly not. People tend to be dishonest just to be able to kind of play a little bit in their, I guess, like kind of like a theater act. We all want to be actors. So even though that statistic kind of sounding a bit extreme, there are people that cheat on their partners, steal, commit tax fraud, do harmful acts, at the major crimes, okay? But the vast majority of lies are not bold-faced statements. Like they're from toxic people. They're smaller lies, not like the big true ones. Like, I got in a car accident, and then do an insurance fraud. More like lying to someone about how they feel, lying to someone just to like be able to talk shit on them later. It's not truly caring. Like, an example would be like, you ask someone, how are you? And they tell you good, even though they're having a terrible day. You just lied right there. Like, you're doing it maybe to save them from hearing your stuff, but you're not being honest. You're not being truthful. Okay. So that's technically a lie. Most lies honestly sound so much like the truth, we can't even tell the difference. Like, there's some people that believe so much into one of their lies that they convince themselves that it is. That's the
like self-delusional.
Yeah, and that's how you trick a lie detector test. But there's a small group of people. So the average person can only pick up maybe like 50% of lies. Like half the time you can kind of tell if someone's messing with you. And then there's an estimated 0.25% of the population that are called natural born truth wizards. Now, I did one podcast out of all the podcasts I've done where I knew from the start it was complete bullshit. The guy never gave me his job, said he worked in some field, and then eventually through that thing, I'm already like, okay, man, okay. But I'm having the conversation. I'm enjoying it because starts talking about Xbox. He starts talking about these other things, and the whole time, like, you basically just lied to me as a person. But I never said it out loud because he was getting something out of it. He was feeling like he was worth something. And I feel like a lot of people don't do that nowadays. We're so willing to call out bullshit. It's like, honestly, if you know it is, do you need to go out and say it is? You really don't.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought maybe he was just a little bit different or something. But then he deleted his Facebook, and yeah. So I'm like, wait a minute. So that whole podcast, it could have been with a completely different, wrong person. That couldn't even been his real name. He was just playing a ploy. The whole time I knew it, but now I have no information to kind of put up for the episode. So I'm still kind of holding on to it. But it's crazy to think the kind of lies we tell people through our lives just to give this false identity or false perception of wealth. It's like, why don't you just be honest?
Yeah.
It's so much easier.
And it's become like so acceptable. Like you said, when someone says, hey, you having a good day today? And you say, yeah, like it's become so acceptable to just lie about the small things that I think it makes it easier to lie about the big things, and people have just become like, it's what makes society go round anymore.
We're built on a foundation of lies. I mean, how was America founded? Christopher Columbus. Well, what did he do? Well, did you know he used to bash babies' heads on rocks, and he used to lie just to be able to get a ride back home? Like, he lied about telling the English settlers that, hey, there's gold here. These Native Americans have gold. And they never had gold. They had a small fraction from probably something they traded. And he only lied so they would send him ships to bring him back home because they knew they would just leave his ass there if he didn't find anything. They're not going to waste the resources, a 5-month journey, just to pick him back up. Right. And like, it's been throughout our history, we've naturally lied. I'm pretty sure maybe it wasn't even caveman that discovered fire. Maybe the caveman stumbled across some, like, let's say Neil deGrasse Tyson just banging a couple rocks together. Next thing you know, he started a fire and the caveman just started beating him up and hiding the body. I'm like, we don't know.
Yeah.
This is what makes mystery so fascinating to people. When you look
True.
at the paranormal, you look at the supernatural, you look at cryptids, you look at all these things. The mystery. It's in the same thing with why you believe in religion so hard. It's you want to think
Yeah.
that there's something more out there, and everything is not what it seems at the surface.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
What do you find
Yeah.
fascinating, or what have you learned through your podcasting? Have you kind of, with all these research and kind of paranormal stuff you do, whether it's supernatural or just kind of psychic, what have you kind of found most interested in?
So we do absolutely anything paranormal, from aliens to cryptids to ghosts, whatever. And I would say overall, what the podcast has done for me, because we do like a kind of like a research episode, and we'll talk about, like, let's say aliens, but the three of us research it ahead of time so that we can present our evidence or lack of evidence. And I'm surprised at how convincing some of these things that I've discounted really are. Like aliens, I've always thought, well, there's people see lights in the sky, yeah. But no, there's actually so much evidence for alien life that I totally have become a believer. That's a big one for me. Like I just have always thought, well, we don't really have enough proof for aliens. But no, that's one where I really did the research and came up with so many, not just like first person accounts, but government accounts, and like really reputable people, generals, and people who fly fighter planes and all of this.
Yeah, that's
And
the most accounts come from fighter pilots, and they always bring up the concept of there was one called Star was it Star Rockets at Night, and it was like supposed to be some type of giant case where there was a bunch of like floating orbs in the air, and that's what fighter pilots used to talk about. But when I would research that, I researched the opposing side as well, because I like to get both sides of the spectrum. And they talked about auditory hallucinations, like when you're sitting in your room at night and you're starting to see shadows kind of crawl across the wall, and you're wondering, like, what the hell is that? Is there someone in my room? When you're flying at night, it's very hard because there's so many things that can go on with your vision. Your brain starts to play a little bit of tricks on you, especially when it's just all black. I mean, how many times do you look up nowadays and you see as much stars as you used to when you were a kid?
Right.
Nobody even pays attention to that anymore. You just look up and it's all black. You're like, where did all the stars go? Who turned out the lights?
Yeah.
And there's so many different things. Like when you submerge yourself in complete darkness, you start to your brain starts to go on a little bit of a creativity spree. It starts creating illusions and things that aren't there. So that's what they use to fight against the opposing fighter pilot's opinion on aliens. And I say, Reagan literally quoted it. He said, I don't think we're the only ones out there in the universe. So I would like to be aware if something ever does arise. The president just hinted there might be something out there. So that makes perfect sense why we have centers now that study unidentified flying objects or unidentified interactions. Like we have this, if it ever does come up. I mean, are we honestly going to sit here and say that we're the only ones in this galaxy, in this world, whatever, that is capable of living? Like there's obviously got to be other planets or something out there that is inhabiting some type of creature.
Yeah. So aliens has been a big one for me. And then this last investigation we did was really my first full investigation. And I'm just naturally a skeptical, and sometimes I even question what I see and experience as a medium. So I had meditated ahead of time, and I kept getting the name Dale. And so I get to the house, and I'm like, do you guys know anybody named Dale? And the lady's like, yeah, my brother. And I was just like kind of blown away. And then I see her mother in the living room, who's passed away. And her mother keeps telling me, tell Dale to finish it. And I said, guys, I don't know what this means, but Dale needs to finish something that he's working on. And so they were like, okay, well, we'll pass that message on. So they pulled out, the guys pulled out all the equipment. So I work with two guys, Daryl and Bruce, and they've got every piece of equipment you can imagine. And so this one bedroom was the one place that the lady said was haunted. And they went in there with their equipment, and I was like, I don't really buy what you think you're seeing there. And, I could explain away like all of it pretty much until there was one point in the evening, we were all getting kind of bored. It was like close to 3:00 in the morning. And Daryl said, I'm just going to put a microphone in that room and we'll wrap it up after that. I just want to see if we get anything. So he went and put a sensitive microphone recorder in the bedroom, and he went and sat down on the couch and was playing with some other equipment. And the rest of us all went outside because he said, you guys need to be kind of quiet. So like everybody was outside. There were about 6 of us. And then about a half hour later, Daryl's like, all right, well, I'm just going to review the tape and then we'll take off. And I know where everyone was. I know Daryl was on the couch the whole time. I know that, the rest of us were outside smoking cigarettes and talking, and there was no one left in the house. And he got footsteps and a door jiggling. And I'm like, well, that's one I can't explain. And it sounded like high heels across the floor of this bedroom. And then it sounded like someone grabbed a doorknob. And Daryl said, I didn't hear the door jiggling and I was sitting right here. And so we thought, well, maybe it was a different door. I went and inspected it. Like, is there a door in the closet that, sometimes these old houses will have an extra door that leads to an attic or another room. I went and fucking inspected the closet, inspected the room. And I was like, okay, I can't explain this one. And so I was like, well, obviously I feel like I can feel that there's something in this room, but I don't even trust my own feelings a lot of times.
Like it's unexplainable.
But yeah, it was just one of those things that it's like, holy cow, this is evidence to me. There's evidence that there's something here. We got it on tape and I can't explain it in any imaginable way. So that was one that was really convincing for me. I was like, okay, I buy it. I don't buy some of the other stuff, but I buy this.
Do you find it weird that we want to know something's out there, but we are afraid of the answer? Like we're constantly doing everything to perceive it and to pursue it. The next thing you know, it's like once we find out, like, or we get a hint of it, something's out there, we get very, very scared and we back away.
I think it's a fear of something that we can't see. I don't think we're as afraid, I don't think I would honestly be as afraid if an intruder entered into my bedroom as I would be if a ghost entered into my bedroom, because it's something you can't see, you can't take it down. It's gonna, you don't know what its behavior is going to be. It's unpredictable. But I think tangible things we're not as afraid of. That's the only way I can explain it.
What types of things do you find that we're not afraid of?
I think we're less afraid of other human beings.
Those are the scariest things you should be afraid of.
I agree. I totally agree. But I do think that we're less afraid of other humans than we are of the paranormal.
It's weird because the paranormal is scary and we don't know about it, but we feel like we know people. And honestly, no, people are the most unpredictable. People are the ones you got to be afraid of. Ghosts, they have intent. Are they going to be a revengeful ghost? Are they going to be a passive ghost?
Yeah.
Are they just looking for help? Like it's the basis of that. But people are unpredictable. You never know if someone's going to zig or zag.
Right. I totally agree. And you don't know if they've got weapons and they can take you out in one shot. And, but that's what we should be afraid of.
I try and focus on like what makes mystery and religion so powerful is the concept of not understanding or not knowing what else could be out there. It's adding a little bit of mystery to your life.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
what?
I think we need that mystery.
Yeah, like chasing Bigfoot or, the Loch Ness Monster. That's 100%, explainable because people want to know something else is out there. They want to find this mystery. They want to do all these things. They want to go and relax because we live in a world that's just nothing but tense all the time. You want to find out that there's something deeper and more kind of rooted into the earth than just our view of how society is kind of gone.
Yeah. Yeah. My ex-husband, who is only sort of an ex-husband, we're still kind of married, but he's a hardcore Catholic, but believes in the paranormal and everything. And he always says that what is so appealing about the Catholic Church is that they talk about the mystery of faith, the mystery of the Eucharist, where a lot of evangelical religions say, oh, no, we totally understand it. We've got this. And there's no mystery. But he says that that's the appeal of the Catholic Church, is that it keeps the mystery in life. There's things we just don't understand, and God is one of them.
Sadly, we love to question, but when we get the answer, we run with it, even though that might not be the actual answer. When Christianity, any type of religion, it's really, really powerful. But as you're seeing nowadays, they're not the dominant religions anymore. It seems like they become kind of weak to a point where the government seems to be now infringing upon religion, where it never even would bother dealing with because religion was so much bigger than the government. But religion, I feel like when it comes to that subject, we're all getting a piece of the big picture. Who's to say there isn't a certain religion? Who's to say there isn't one that you have to follow or you'll go to some damnation place? Maybe it's just about understanding and trying to be what we consider a good person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I question a lot of times, like, where did religion come from? And I thought I had it figured out. Like, I thought it was kind of like cavemen running around and they see a bolt of lightning and they're like, oh, Zeus, But the more I think about it, the more I think that the answer is in like this innate feeling humans have that there's an interconnectedness in humanity, that there's a connection to the world, the planet, and that feeling of that there's something other than ourselves that is greater than ourselves. And then people started putting names on it, and coming up with gods and all that kind of thing.
And they went for the money aspect of it too, selling you a golden Bible that's for 4 small payments of $6,000. You'll be able to have your own golden Bible.
Yeah.
I chalk up when people say the Bible. What's the first thing you think of when it pops into your head? You think of a really old book that drifted down from the heavens and landed on earth. And some guy picked it up, was like, we need to follow this. It's a gift.
Yeah.
It's created by man. Religion is created by man. It's our own concept. It's our own way of dealing with what's around us. I'm not religious, but I'm open-minded. I do believe that certain people experience something what they can consider a religious moment is what they need to get on with their life, to get through their day. You don't want to feel like once you die, nothing's left. Every religion, everything has a concept of what the afterlife is, and it all hits around the same.
I see that in my mother, especially, where like I've grown away from religion entirely to the point that I kind of believe in maybe a universal spirit, maybe, but that would be it. And where she's still a hardcore evangelical Christian, and I just see that she's 72 now, and nearing the end of her life, she's looking for that comfort because she has this fear of death. And I'm like, oh, I totally get it. Like, that's really important to her because she's so scared of what's going to happen when she dies.
Well, no one wants to feel like when they die, there's nothing. You're just gone. Your whole life, everything, 80, 90 years, whatever age you die, you don't want to feel like all of it was just worthless. It only mattered. It's not going to matter to you. But it's the same reason, like, why are you going to consume a whole bunch of wealth and then know that you're not going to be able to carry it on into the afterlife? Like, if there is one, I hope there would be. That would be nice to know, but I don't have a clue. I don't know. I just know I'm here now. I need to do as much as I possibly can and try and at least make my mark here before I end up drifting off.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And do, good. And I think that that's really kind of the point. It's just do good in the world. Do as much of it as you can.
It's hard to kind of do good in the world when the world just projects this bad image of itself. And it's like we're highlighting the worst parts about it. We're not highlighting the people that are benefiting, that are building homes, that are trying to make a difference. We choose to look at the downside. We choose to be influenced by that and let that hold us back. Like, have you ever heard of the story of General Butt Naked?
No.
So he has a documentary on Netflix. Now I want to get your interpretation of this, okay? So I'm going to explain his story, and I want to get your kind of opinions on it through the story.
Okay. So I'm listening.
There's this African warlord.
Wait, yes, I do know this story.
The redemption of Butt Naked?
Go ahead and tell it.
Okay, so the African warlord, he would basically, they call him General Butt Naked because he would go into battle naked. He believed he was the devil incarnate. He believed he was the devil himself. So he would wear these leather-bound shoes on his feet, and he would wear a beret. Now, I heard it from Joe Rogan, and I decided to look it up myself and actually read the book and then watch the documentary on him, okay? The documentary is pretty funny. It's called The Redemption of Butt Naked. But I always explain this to some people that try and get try to talk about moral values and killing's wrong. Obviously, killing's wrong, but there are some people that are uneducated, and you got to realize what we consider our moral values are different in another country. So this guy would go underwater, wait for kids to play at the water, and he would pop up, grab one of them, bring them underwater, and snap their neck. Now you hear that, what do you immediately think? You think that's a horrible person, right?
Right.
Now, what have humans been known to do throughout history? We watch, okay? We learn from what we see. So when we were first being grown up into this country in America, this land, when our ancestors were learning how to survive, we learned off the animals. What types of animals do we have in America? Bears. We have what? I don't know. Yeah, moose, other deer, other types of things that learn how to eat
buffalo,
eat berries, and all these types of things. Now, we learned from that. So our instincts when it comes to hunting and all these things, we adapted from the animals that were around us. Now let's go over to where General Butt Naked went, okay? In Africa. Let's look at that. All right, so if he's learning from the animals there, what's one animal that hides in the water and then waits for something to come by, then grabs it and brings it underwater?
Oh, alligators, crocodiles.
Exactly. And what's common in Africa? Alligators and crocodiles. You learn that way. They learn to eat, rip into raw flesh and use their mouth, use these types of things we call savagery. It's because they're learning from lions. They're learning from the things around them. They didn't know, we did it a different way. We literally zigged and they zagged,
Right.
And it's crazy because that's what a crocodile does. And then eventually he came to America like 2016 and told people because he had a religious moment. He found God, and everyone's like, it doesn't matter. You killed kids, you ate babies, you did so much crazy stuff. And he was like, I was uneducated. I didn't know what was going on around me. I didn't know the conception. I thought my morals were right. I didn't understand them fully. And now I've come to this way to realize that when I met Jesus, like he said, he met Jesus, and now we forgive him. People are like, well, we shouldn't have to commit him for his crimes because he found God. No, he understood. He became more educated that there's a sense of connection deep down inside of us. It's not him getting religious. And now, you know what he does?
Yeah.
He goes and builds homes in Africa and basically disbands warrior children. He tries to bring them out of that harmful environment, and he helps rebuild homes. With all the millions of dollars that he's gotten, he just helps these people out. He's building homes. He's changing all of Africa, one village at a time. And people are like, he should still pay for his crimes. He admits to that. He says, I know, I never stop seeing every single day I wake up the people's faces of who I've killed, the families I have hurt. He says, I believe all of them should have their own punishment towards me, but I'm going to make my life better. And then I say that, and everyone kind of changes their perspective on this guy they thought was just a complete animal. They're like, oh, I get it. He's human. He made a mistake. And now he's learning from that.
And isn't that redemption? I mean, isn't he paying for his crimes in a way by doing as much good as he can now?
He's making up for lost time, but people don't consider
there's a balance there. He did evil, but now he does good.
People don't consider that because they want someone to pay the price. Someone has to die. Someone has to lose something.
Spend their life in jail. And
yeah, it's like, no, he's doing something way more beneficial than if we just kept them in a cell. He's changing lives of children that don't understand, that are growing up in the world where they think what he was doing originally is the correct way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally believe in that. Like, true. Like, to me, I like to watch a lot of criminal mind, crime shows, forensic files, like serial killers. I love that shit because it gives you an insight into the human mind and the evil that we're capable of. But you also see some of these people where you're like, at first your reaction is always, well, they should be thrown in jail for the rest of their lives. They should, be put to death or something like that.
Someone has to suffer.
Right. But then I remember one day I was watching some serial killer thing and I was like, no, true justice would be to change that guy's life. For someone who cares to step into his life and teach him the right way to live.
Well, everyone thinks when they mean pay the price means you have to die, you have to lose something, you have to experience tragic loss or something emotionally impactful, when really paying the price is making up for what you did by learning from your mistakes and making every effort to try and fix them, even though they may be unfixable. You need to learn how to correct yourself, fix your way, and never do that same mistake over and over again. Mistakes are beneficial for a reason. You're supposed to learn from them. But sadly, nowadays, the world that we're kind of captured in, it teaches you just to never make a mistake. And that's the wrong way of doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm always like, especially because I've always worked with children. I've always been a teacher since I was in my teens. Like I taught preschool and then later middle school and everything. And to me, it's always been, if we can just transform people's lives, especially when they're young, we can prevent so many ills in society, so much bad shit that a kid might grow up to be if somebody just loves them. If somebody just gives them a hug, and I'm a firm believer in like, let's not incarcerate so much, which America is the number one incarceration capital of the planet. And we just throw people in jail and that's our solution. But to me, the solution is transforming people's lives. And I don't know. I've always thought if there was just a way I could reach some people, that would be what I would want to do with my life. But that's not where I am right now.
Are you trying to educate people on the paranormal, or do you feel like people are still kind of, I guess, resistant to the change?
I think the empath in me truly cares about other people's feelings and emotions. And yeah, it's a drain, and I do have to protect myself because I can be exhausted from other people. But I know that my most valuable work has been when I've been able to sit down with a middle schooler and they're failing my class, but who cares? What's going on at home? What's going on in your life that
they're environmental factors.
Yeah. And I think those things are the most important. And you can use that as an empath. And I think empaths are especially gifted at that because we can feel what another person is feeling. And it's like you come alongside them and say, I know what you're feeling, and it's okay. How can we change your life so that you don't have to feel that way anymore?
Yeah, empathy is just another word for being connected.
And to me, that's valuable work.
Well, empathy is just another word for being relatable, being connected. We just need to find that connection.
Yeah.
What makes us human? Like, stop comparing what car somebody has. Stop comparing your looks and find the things that make you relatable. But understand you have
Right.
differences in you, but that doesn't make you worse or less than that person. It makes you your own unique and wonderful individual.
Yeah. And we are so consumed with judging others. I remember I was talking to my dad recently, and I said, it seems like we've come to a point in the world where we look at another person and say, what can I hate you for? What do you have that I hate in you? And how can I make myself different from you by hating you for that thing? And I feel like that's where we are in the world. It's like we're so into separating ourselves from other people, whether that's by owning a certain car or the clothes you wear or whatever it is. You're always looking at another person saying, like, I hate how if you're just going through your daily life, it can be how somebody else drives. Like, you hate that person for how they drive. I saw a statistic where road rage has gone up 580 something percent in the last 10 years. That's insane. That means we're hurting other people because of how they drive. And I'm guilty of that, and that's just, it's always, what can I hate you for? What makes you different that I can dislike you as a person, instead of finding, what do we have in common? What are the feelings that you have that I also have? How are you hurting in a way that I can understand?
This is why people love having animals, because they seem like they don't judge you. They love
Yes.
you for who you are. You don't feel like you ever have to hide in front of your dog. You don't feel like you ever have to hide in front of a certain pet you have, because they don't care about that. They realize that
Right.
you're there and they want to enjoy your company, not judge you on what you have.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
And I mean,
hard
I've
for
got,
people to understand, because we live in this world it's not that bad, but we make it bad. We choose to let it hold us down when there's so many wonderful things about it just under the surface, and it's not that hard to find it. We just never want to go and look.
right, exactly. It's that not giving other people a chance kind of thing.
I feel like there's a certain like stigma we give to certain jobs, certain things that we say when it comes to curse words, when it comes to in the job field. Like, one thing I did want to bring up, you said, you worked in the porn industry. Like, somebody saying that to someone, you don't put that on your resume. You don't say anything of that sort, because you're usually afraid of it.
Right.
I'm like, why are we afraid of something we all know exists, we all enjoy, we all do it? I mean, it's a natural thing in all of us. We all have this craving for a connection. That's just another form of connectivity.
Exactly. It wasn't me that worked in the porn industry. It was my husband who did. He still does to this day.
I mean, it's not.
But we did get judged for it all the time. I lost a job once over it, and it's just an issue of, they were saying, like, oh, well, your husband has a problem. I'm like, he doesn't have a problem. We have a great sex life. We enjoy porn together, and that's what he does when he goes to work every day. He wasn't a performer, but he's a publicist, and so he's on set all the time and all that kind of thing. And they were like, well, he's seeing naked girls. Doesn't that bother you? And I'm like, no. And that's just so foreign to a lot of people. But I always tell people, I've met some of the most religious people I've met have been in the porn industry. And they go to church and they pray and read their Bible or whatever they do. And, they're very religious people.
Everyone thinks that, like, oh, Jim's not like that. Jim doesn't have anything weird about him. He works 9 to 5, has a family and kids. I'm like, Jim's a fucking freak. Jim probably does something you wouldn't even think, because we're all under the normalist people is severe suppression of something that they truly find weird or something that they truly find different. And they look at that different and they stigmatize it, trying to hide it for the rest of their life until it breaks out. Bill Cosby, for example, he had something really crazy going on with him, and he hid it in a way where people like, no, that can't be true. That can't be true. And I'm like, you have to look at these people that are so normal, that are like, there's nothing wrong with that guy. He's a wonderful person. I'm like, no, I guarantee you he has something about him that makes him a freak, you know?
Yeah.
When we don't
he just hides it better than you.
And the problem is when we don't let them be open about it, or come out and like at least bring it up into a conversation, they feel so suppressed, it breaks out in a severe way, like with Bill Cosby.
You're exactly right. Yep.
I have a weird idea with the porn industry. So about a couple of years ago, I went to the doctors and I was getting a physical, and I'm a physically fit guy. And he just randomly, while my shirt and my pants were down, just said, "Hey, you know, if you ever want to get into the porn industry, I could hook you up." And I'm like, what? And it was the weirdest conversation. And I say this and people are like, that's not true. I've sent the texts. I've sent I've sent all the information where the guy was like, hey, if you ever, you know, I know, you know, like, hey, if you ever want to get into it or something, just let me know. And I told him, I was like, look, if I don't get anything moving by the age of 26, I'll be more than happy to join the porn industry. Okay?
Yeah.
And my buddy's like, dude, your doctor just invited you to do porn. I'm like, yo, I could be making millions of dollars right now, but it's not in my cards at the moment. Maybe down the road. I just think it's crazy when people think of a certain job, like, oh, you work as a stripper, you work as this. I'm like, they're people too. They're just trying to make something for themselves.
Exactly.
That's the way they have to do it. Work with what you got.
And we shouldn't, as a society, we shouldn't be looking down on people for these kind of things, you know? I mean, it's like they feel so ashamed of themselves. Like, take a stripper, for example. They're not telling everybody what they do. They say that they're a dancer or, you know, I'm a waitress. Yeah. And it's because there's so much shame in it. And it's like that shame shouldn't be there. That's normal. And it's normal for guys to want to see it. It's normal for girls to want to perform, and to stigmatize it the way we do, I think is, you know, I think I told you before, I grew up in Europe, and it's not stigmatized there. It's on normal TV, for one thing. Like, there's nudity all over the place. You go to the beach and, you know, half the people are naked, and it's just normal because they're a lot more comfortable with their bodies, and there's less shame about, for one thing, the human body, but there's less shame about sex and pornography in general there.
Well, see, the problem is we live in a society now where you create so much suppression, it breaks out somewhere. And honestly, if we were just more open to things and stop stigmatizing words, stop stigmatizing things and labeling them as voodoo or taboo subjects, if you just have conversation, you might not have to agree. It's all about just understanding. And that'll make everything seem less rash, seem like the world's not so tense. People will learn to relax. You don't want to feel pent up, or you don't want to feel like you're not being heard. You want to just be open and not have fear of judgment.
Yeah. And I feel for these girls that are so judged, you know.
It's not only the women either, it's the guys too. It's not even dealing with just the porn industry. Every day when you encounter someone in the world, they are hiding something because they're afraid that you're going to act a certain way if they tell you. So now we all walk around like the damn SpongeBob episode where, hi, how you doing? It's like, no, you're not this bland figure. Stop feeding me this bland figure. Give me the real inspiration. What do you like to do? You like to paint? How do you like to paint? Okay. Well, let's learn about it. Let's take at least an hour. Oh my God, it's not that hard. Just to have a conversation with someone. We all think around the same thing, but we have this way of being unique that we don't ever let bubble to the surface.
I totally agree, because I'm a person who, I live my unique self all the time, and I get some shit for it, but I live in this campground, and this summer I just watched a lot of people, and it's funny, all of the women are dressed identical, all of the men are dressed identical, they all do the same thing, and I'm like, what would you be like if you just wore what you really would want to wear? What would you be like? What kind of clothes would you really like to wear? You know? And I'm just like, if only you could just be yourself. And that would be such a gift if people could just be themselves and feel free to do it.
I agree 100%, Amanda. It's something we need to focus on, because honestly, we're not going to progress in the world or progress as people if we don't even look over the fact that we're holding way too things high as standards, and we honestly shouldn't be. We should just realize people are people. They're going to do what they want to do. They're going to dress what they want. And why are we going to judge them knowing that 5 minutes from now, it's not going to matter? We're never probably going to see that person again.
Right. Yeah. And how much are we losing? Like you said, like, do you like to paint? I mean, how many creative souls are we losing because they feel this need to dress the same and do the same as everyone else? You know, there's so much creativity inside of humanity. I really believe every single person has creativity. And if they could only express it.
Yeah. And Amanda, it's been awesome talking to you. I mean, this has been a wonderful conversation. I know when I messaged you, you were kind of like, what do you want? You know, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, like, it's just conversation. I'm really glad you took the opportunity and gave me the opportunity to have a wonderful conversation.
I appreciate the time.
But
I feel a little more enlightened. Thank you.
Oh, you felt enlightened by me. That might not be a good thing. Well, it was awesome having you on, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I hope to talk to you again sometime.